going on, everybody?
What up, what up, what up?
It is Monday. So you know what time it is. It's time for yet another
Monday
motivation chat.
Hey. So
how's everybody doing on this lovely Monday?
Yes, sir. So thank you guys for bearing with us. We had to take a week off to recenter, refocus. Sometimes you just got to do that. Sometimes you got to recenter. Sometimes you got to take a break. And everyone knows this social media thing can be draining, can be either a useful tool or it can suck you into a black hole. So I think social detoxes are a great thing, whoever invented that, and just stepping away to get clarity and refocus. So here we are, Monday evening, ready to get some inspiration, ready to have an amazing conversation with Connie Grier. She is an educator, professor, an author, an advocate. She's done amazing things in the community, and we are so excited to chat with her.
So let's go ahead and bring her in.
Got my tea on.
Hey.
Hi, beautiful.
Hi, sweetheart.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We are great.
Thank you.
So we handpicked you specifically for last Monday, but you got to take a pause sometimes in honor of MLK's in remembrance of MLK. But I think that should be every day, right? And we should strive to have days of service, days where we're giving, not just one day a year. But with all that being said, I'm so excited to just share with everyone all of the amazing things that you've done, not only in your advocacy, but on day to day as an educator, principal. So introduce yourself.
I think you've introduced me. Good evening, everyone. My name is Connie Grier. I am a lifelong educator, a social justice advocate with a specific focus on mass incarceration, school to prison pipeline, and the family bond being impacted by incarceration. I'm also the author of a children's book, Khadijah the Rebel, which is available Amazon, Barnes & Noble. What else? I'm an educational consultant. I provide services to educational organizations that strive to connect better with their staff in the benefit for the benefit of the students that they serve. I'm a mother of amazing twin sons who are juniors in college this year. Yes, I've made it over the made it over the mountaintop.
Yes.
I think that probably basically covers everything.
I would love to dive deep into your work in social advocacy and where you began that work and where you envision it to go from.
Where do I envision it to go? So I'll tell you how I actually got my start. In 2012, I saw a post on Facebook about a young man named Travion Blount. Travion Blount was, I believe, 15 years old, where he attended a house party in Virginia with two older folks that were 18 years old. They went to the house party. The three of them had guns. They went to rob the folks in the house party. They pointed the guns at people. This was a house party, so this was not like a heist. People had weed and money, basically. And so that was the take for the evening. However, Travion, again, as I said, was 15 years old. He let women escape out the bathroom, window. He wasn't trying to harm anyone. He was, just following the lead of two older people who should have known better. They got arrested. The two older people turned on Travion, made it out to be like he set the whole thing up. The judge gave Travion 20 years for every person that he pointed the gun at. Not every person that he harmed, because there was no one physically harmed. I'm not going to say they weren't traumatized, but there was no one physically harmed. We're talking again about weed and money. There was, no great value, stolen at this house party. Those two people that were 18 or over, they got off with 10 years or something of that nature. Travion had like 140 plus years. He was given an 140 plus year sentence for participating in the house party robbery. And he maintained his innocence. Not innocence. He maintained the fact that, he didn't harm anyone, and he was not the mastermind behind this thing. He went along with them. They tried to make it like, he was the planner of it. They got a reduced sentence for doing so. Thank goodness he had legal representation and an advocate who, fought for him. So while he was in prison for a lengthy amount of time, they got the 100 and something plus years knocked down to like 43 years. Then they had to wait and get that knocked down, and now he's out. But back in 2014 or 2012, when I saw that article, I'm like, this can't be real. This can't be right. This can't be happening. But the more research I did, the more I saw that people that are Black, people that are brown, people that are poor, you get the legal representation that you can afford in this nation, and that's not right. Any nation that treats an innocent Black person worse than a guilty white person is trash. That the system is trash. The system is not broken. Is operating the way that it was designed to operate. And once I found out that Travion's case wasn't an isolated incident or an anomaly, but it was the status quo, I had to get involved. It started out working with young people because I'm an educator. So always in my classroom, I'm always, letting my young people know about their rights. The best way, even in their interactions with teachers, people don't think about how the school to prison pipeline starts. It doesn't start out in the street. It starts in school. Unfortunately, the place that we send our children and we think that they're going to be nurtured and taken care of, that's where the school to prison pipeline starts. You have a young person that acts out according to the teacher or, whatever adult happens to be in his or her presence. They act out. What's going to happen? They get a write-up. What happens if they act out many times? They get many write-ups. So what happens? The teachers begin to, formulate opinions about this young person because of these write-ups that are in his or her file. So the student comes into the classroom, the teacher has a preconceived notion of who the student is. So the student breaks wind the wrong way, and he or she is getting in trouble. The more you get in trouble, the more uncomfortable it is for you to nurture yourself and grow in school. You're not coming to school and having the positive experience that's going to help you grow as a scholar. You're feeling picked on. You're having issues that adults are not taking seriously, because all they see every time they look at your face are those write-ups, right? And pretty soon you get to a point where you have someone that decides, okay, enough's enough. This setting is not the setting for you because of all these write-ups and issues and sometimes fights that you have. And then you get put out of regular school, and sometimes you drop out. If you know about the book called Push Out, which is about the high number of African-American girls who are pushed out of school, not physically, obviously, but pushed out by policies that treat them too harshly, and they drop out. It's not, but when you use the term dropout, the responsibility is like on the child. But
Right.
these are children. These are children. So it's not about them dropping out. It's about them actually being pushed out. And that's what the book Push Out speaks about. And so that's the beginning of the school to prison pipeline. So then I think to, Travion, the story that I learned about in 2012, it's like, it's clear. It's the policies. It's the way that we respond to children acting in inappropriate ways. It's how we respond. It's not always what the child is doing. It's always how we respond to what the child is doing. So that's how I got my start in advocacy. I, began educating young people in community settings. I then began to work with female individuals who were incarcerated through Ardella's House. I would go to PIC to teach classes of students that are residents at PIC. And if you didn't know, PIC is a jail on state road. So I would, teach classes that were combined with Temple University students and residents at PIC through the Inside Out program. Basically, a lot of areas in my life were impacted by my need to address mass incarceration and the devastating impact that mass incarceration has on communities of color across the nation.
Is PIC for adolescents or is that adults?
That's adults.
Okay.
That's adults. And I mean, the issue with, a lot of jails that a lot of people don't think about, a lot of people are sitting in jail because they can't afford bail, not because they're guilty. A lot of people that are in jails haven't even been to trial yet. They can't afford bail. They could go home if they could afford the bail, but they can't afford the bail. So they're sitting in jail, not even charged in a court of law. So,
wow.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, so where do you envision, is this part of the Respect Alliance? Is all of part of the mission around
I'm sorry, I think I hit a button erroneously, knocked us off. I'm back. Yes, a lot of the work that I do falls under the Respect Alliance umbrella, which is my nonprofit that focuses on social justice issues, mentorship for young people, and parental engagement at the school level. And yes, so helping young people to stay the course in education, but know their rights, teaching them how to be self-advocates, teaching them how to stand up for themselves without it being a discipline action. That's important to me, not only for the students that I work with or the young people that I work with in the community, my sons, I've trained them to be that way as well. Every time something happens in, school, we're talking about young people, so they don't often know how to react in appropriate manners, or let's say manners that are in alignment with what schools expect, how schools expect children to behave. They're emotional, right? I tell them not to react in that way. Take it to paper, write everything down, have your paper trail, evidence, record. That's what's going to get you some satisfaction, not cussing the teacher out because she said something inappropriate to you. No, write down the fact that teacher cussed you out, and then send that email to the teacher, your parent, the principal, and whomever else. That's the reaction. That's how we have to show young people how to advocate for themselves. So yes, a lot of this falls under the Respect Alliance.
Okay.
I used to teach too. For a short period of time, I wasn't a teacher nearly as long as you were. And I feel like, just from my experience during the time frame of teaching, there's not enough teachers that look like those students that can help bridge that gap, right? Because a lot of times when you have people from completely different communities then what seems like logical sense to one community is not going to be logical sense to the other. And that was always something that used to frustrate me when you kind of overhear the teachers talking about those students and complaining about this or complaining about that and, you know, making these smart remarks. And it's just like, if somebody just took the time to just talk to them, then things would be completely different, you know? And
Mhm.
that's something that I noticed a lot, you know, with my students because um, I'm still relatively young. So, and then I have children, you know, like my oldest just turned 13. So like I'm aware of kind of like what's going on. So the little slang and the little jokes and everything like that, like I completely get it. You know, I understand. And then especially nowadays with the virtual learning, like that's
Mhm.
even tough, right? Like so then now not only were you having issues with um, making sure that they're acting an appropriate way in school. But now they're in the comfort of their own home, and sometimes the home is not even comfortable, right? There's some of these students are in some crazy situations, and they're almost embarrassed to be on the camera doing school because of that, you know. And it's and
Right.
a lot of people nowadays, I feel like aren't realizing that and realizing the
Mhm.
impact of that. So I think that it's truly amazing that you're identifying that and you know you're speaking to that. I wish I heard a lot more of that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's second nature now. I don't even, I think when I grew up shy. So thinking about, myself in terms of advocacy and speaking out on behalf of other people and, doing work inside of prisons and just doing a lot of things that, shy Connie as a child would never have thought that she was capable of. And it was only because of the advocacy of my father for me.
Mm-hmm.
He is the reason that I do what I do. He stood up against racist racist policies during the 70s here in Philadelphia in terms of acceptance into top tier schools. Um, he burst into the superintendent's office and said, basically said, "You want to tell me why you're not letting my daughter into this school," which was, Masterman. I'm one child, Masterman in terms of their middle school, hundreds of slots. It's a very large middle school. The high school of Masterman is narrow and, has a small number of students, but the middle school, hundreds. And so he couldn't understand why someone who was scoring 99 and 100s on all the, state tests, perfect attendance, never missed a day of school, only missed one day from K to 12th grade, and was perfectly behaved. Why would you not let her here? And so his advocacy for me is what put me on my trajectory to be where I am today. And so I feel like I have to pay it forward for all the young people who have parents that are uncertain and unsure and afraid because of the way they have historically been treated in governmental spaces. So I feel like I have an obligation because I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be able to do the things that I'm doing today if I didn't have a father who stood up for me. And so I knew from the time I was 9 years old that I was going to be a teacher. And I knew from the time I was 23, 24 that I wasn't just going to be just a regular social studies teacher. I knew I was going to be different. I knew I had to pay it forward. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
definitely, it's definitely important. I mean, even, you're saying that you taught for a short amount of time, but you've identified a lot of the pervasive issues that still are a problem. As you said, young people sitting in classrooms lacking representation in the people who educate them, whether that be the classroom teacher or the school leadership in terms of administration. It's an issue. It's pervasive. Even when you're talking about gender, you have so many, black and brown boys in schools here in Philadelphia. The number of or percentage of black and brown male teachers in the Philadelphia public school system hovers around 5% here in Philadelphia, and nationally is like or hovers around 2%. That's a problem.
Right.
That's a problem.
One thing that has stuck out to me, and you shared a teacher that had left your school because they just couldn't stand for the policies of the school or felt like they were trying to be supportive. This was a brown teacher, right? A woman who felt like she wanted to be a voice for her student, but the policies of the school didn't allow her to be, or didn't frustration in the lack of change or the slow to change, or and I've also being in educational staffing, I've met people, and sadly men, black and brown men, who walk away from the teaching profession altogether, not because of the children but because of the adults in the building and the politics of it all. What
Mhm.
do you say to those educators who either are thinking about walking away, who or have walked away from something that they're passionate about? They came into it with just their full hearts, and now they've walked away or are kind of thinking about it.
I would encourage them to speak out. And when I say speak out, I don't necessarily mean that they have to take on the system within their building. I mean, speak out to educators, male educators, black educators who are doing it and who are doing it passionately and joyfully and in the service of young people. Reach out to those people and share your frustration and your fears and allow yourself to be supported. You don't have to be an island. Like, this is getting into education and feeling like you have to go it alone. You're doing yourself a disservice. You're making the situation be that much more problematic. We all need support. We all need encouragement. If you are just starting out and you feel as if the policies in your building are too much for you to handle, maybe you need to work in another building. Maybe you need to process those policies with someone who has been in the game a lot longer, who could give you strategies and tips on how to do your best for young people while not, doing anything that's going to jeopardize your career. But I think it starts with you as an adult being an advocate for yourself, right? Hey, I'm here. I'm passionate about this career path. I know I have something to offer to young people, but I feel like I'm being beat down by the other adults. I need support. That, we have to advocate for ourselves as adults as well.
Right, right. What if someone doesn't know how to do that? Where would they begin?
I think different for, depending on the type of person you are. I think your personality dictates a lot of how you would address a situation where you feel as if you're being shortchanged. Some people are more vocal. Some people will, head to the internet and, search for, black educational organizations. If you feel like, you're a person of color or a black person and you want to service your students, but you feel like you're being hindered by policies either in the district that you work in or the adults in the building where you work, you might seek out a supportive network. I think the first step we have to take, whether we are, outspoken or shy or whatever, again, is speaking up. Speaking up looks differently for each and every one of us. You could send an email to a teacher that you trust. Hey, I'm floundering. You may not be able to help me, but can you recommend me to, a group, organization, a person that can?
Hmm.
I think one of the I, we talked before about COVID kind of being a blessing in a disguise for some people. You know, been a rough time, and there's a lot of people
Yeah.
that don't have the pleasure of saying anything like that. Um, but in regards to education, the virtual learning has been difficult, but at the same time, I feel like what it opened up the opportunity for is for educators that are at that point where they're, you know, we want to be happy where we work at, right? Regardless of passion and why we're doing it, um, sometimes you can only handle but so much. And there are now so many different types of online organizations where teachers can create their own curriculum and their own um, whatever their own subject, whatever it is that they want to teach, out of the passion of their hearts. And I think that maybe that might be a great opportunity for those types of teachers that are in that position where they feel like they're struggling. They want to make an impact in the youth for the better, but they're unhappy where they're at with the administration or policies, whatever the situation is.
Yeah, the internet, right? It's such a beautiful, amazing thing. Create a masterclass on whatever you want for whoever you want.
And you could make the classes
Definitely.
as big or small as you want. Because that's another thing that makes it tough too, is like you have these horrible teacher to student ratios. So it's easy for students to fall behind, and then you'll have schools that have these kind of like no child left behind type situations where they're kind of just pushing kids along. And it's like, well, if they're not fully understanding the concepts, then how are you pushing them along? And when we're dealing with personalities and we're dealing with, as adults, we all hear differently. We all learn differently. Like, so you can't expect just to have this one type of way of delivering and your entire student body is going to understand. And then if you don't understand, well, so be it. You got to figure it out.
Right. And that also plays right back into the school to prison pipeline when you're speaking about young people who are frustrated in their classrooms, especially when you're, let's say you're speaking about someone who is like 6, 7 years old, fidgety, needs to move. I mean, we need to move. Adults go to faculty meetings in schools. They're getting up and going to the bathroom twice in the span of 45 minutes, yet we expect children to sit still like tiny robots all day long in their chairs, except for, when you let them out for lunch and maybe if they have recess. But that's impossible. Like, again, adults who are in total control of their bodies can't even sit still and sit in chairs for extended amount of times. But this is the behavior we expect of young people. And so let's say a 6 or 7-year-old gets up and goes to sharpen his or her pencil without asking. Okay, that's a classroom infraction, right? Because, okay, you just got up on your own, but your body could have signaled that you needed some movement, because you've been sitting too long. Instead of with a trauma-informed or, a fully educated teacher who focuses on the whole person might say is, okay, that should be a message to me that maybe at this time I need to get up, do a movement break, stop the class, have everybody stretch, invite kids to come up and sharpen their pencils at this, right? They would put themselves in a learning space from their students, right? That's,
Right.
The best teachers are lifelong learners. Like, there's no shame in not knowing everything. And there's no shame for a teacher to be the student and a student to be the teacher. However, that's not the response that so many students receive. It's they're fidgety, they need to be on medication, they're, disrupting, the classroom, right? It's negative. And so the same thing happens when you're speaking about teaching and learning in terms of the accessibility to learning for the children. If they're sitting in front of a test, they can, barely read on the level that the test is prepared on.
Right.
They're going to be frustrated. That starts a negative feeling within them about, school, a negative feeling that they associate with going to school. Then they might start to, let's say, cut that class because they feel like they're going to be challenged in a way that they're not prepared for. And instead of the person who's, facilitating the class recognizing that, they're just pouring on it, like No Child Left Behind, no class work or no classwork assignment left behind. And it's just, and you're just burying the kid. They're getting more and more frustrated. Pretty soon the student's going to reach a breaking point. That breaking point could be them cutting your class. It could be them getting into an altercation with a student that they thought was looking at them, too hard. They're not mad at the kid that's looking at them too hard. They're mad because they can't read that test question and they're failing your class. But that takes like I said, another level of educator, someone who's like looking at not only students for students, but students as people.
Yeah,
you got to
exactly.
look at the whole person.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I was going to say, because it's like that type of logic is not teacher logic. That's just being human logic. We're grown adults, and we can be frustrated by something that happened during our workday, and we come home and we let our spouse or our kids have it because we're frustrated at something else. It's the same exact concept, just in a different, environment. It's a shame. It's sad to see. It's really disheartening.
It's definitely why, again, I think that it's important that we as parents in the home raise our children to be respectful advocates, right? They have to be able to voice their concerns. We as parents, we have to, be able to tell the difference between disrespect and voicing an opinion. I say this because my father was, children are to be seen and I heard. He did not spare the ride. He was very much, that's how he was. He's my everything, love him to death, but that's how he was. When I became a parent, I knew with the world that we lived in and with me being in education as long as, I had been by the time I became a parent, I knew I had to, while I love and respect my father, revere him, I had to raise my children differently. My children have to be able to not have fear to express an opinion. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that it's going to go their way all of the time, but they at least need to live in a space where they feel heard and respected. Mm-hmm. Because we want them not to be followers in the street. Right. We want them to be able to speak out in an appropriate, respectful way when they are facing challenges and difficulties in school. That starts at home. That starts in your house. That starts when you give them choices and options over things that they could be able to have choices and options over. Now, of course, when we're talking about safety and risk, yes, you're the parent. You set the tone in terms of, right? Hey, you're 5 years old. Stay away from the stove. You're not cooking yet. You can watch. You can help. But no, you are not to cook on your own. That's not crushing their spirit. That's looking out for their safety. Right. However, if you're, speaking about, okay, do you want to read See Jane Run or Dick and Jane? And they say, I want to read Dick and Jane. He said, well, you better read C.J. Why? Certain things children it's okay. They can have an opinion. My sons don't have to agree with me all of the time. As long as they know how to express their disagreement, they know how to watch their tone, and they know how to be respectful, and they know because we have this interaction dance, they can read me like I can read them. They know when, okay, mom said this, that's it. However, that point does not come before I give them an opportunity to express themselves respectfully. But people don't understand as parents that that's our responsibility to raise self-advocates. Can't depend on the school to do it. Mm-hmm. That's something that should happen in your home.
Mm-hmm. So is that where the parent coaching comes in to
mm-hmm.
talk about
yes.
Kind of?
Yes. Like I said, I had to come to terms with the fact that I was not going to be a carbon copy of Abraham Grier as a parent. That's what I thought was going to be my litmus test because, hey, I turned out great. So I thought I was going to just, follow his every move in terms of how he parented. But once I became a parent, I had to break some things that were generational curses because he went through those things as a child. And so when he raised me with those things. And he wasn't taking time to, assess my feelings. That, listen, my father was 50 when I was born. So by the time I was 10, he was like, grandparent age, right? He fed me, he clothed me, he advocated for me. That's enough, right? But I just knew I could not be, that kind of parent because of the world that we live in today. You want your children to not be afraid to share things with you. My sons have shared things with me that other children might hide from their parents, and then ultimately that snowballs into a larger situation that gets, out of their control. But if you have the type of relationship where your child can talk with you, even if you get angry, they understand that their anger is an emotional response. And that's another thing. Parents should not be afraid, or let me not use the word afraid. Parents should not be intimidated by apologizing when they are wrong. Because as parents, we make mistakes. We can be wrong. That's not to say, again, that you allow your children to walk over you or be disrespectful, but own up to your ish, because you want them to own up to theirs.
Right.
So in the course of 20 years, there have been times when my sons have, done things and I just reacted. Yeah, I'm a human being. I react. And that reaction might be emotional, might not be logical. It's emotional at first. But what do? I go back to them. And I say, I didn't have to say things the way that I said them, but I meant what I said. Let's talk. I was upset. You upset me. I apologize. Let's talk. That has to not be taboo, because we need to be in the business of encouraging our children to be their own best advocate. And the only way they're going to do that is if they have some sort of voice in your household.
Right. I feel like we have two of our boys, our oldest and our second youngest. They politely put us in our place when they'll be like, but last week you did the same thing.
Yeah. We've been, since they were little, like this, that's our same mentality, is like making sure that they have a voice. You want to cut your hair, you want this, making sure that they have options, but not like giving them complete control.
Right.
Like it's like having that balance and that bond, and it shows. They've like I said, our oldest just turned 13, and he's just an amazing young man. And he can make his own decisions. And we can sit down and have family conversation and take his opinion. It's just like, so this is what we're thinking about doing with this. What are your thoughts? Like, how would you implement? And just have those conversations, because it's like we're a unit. It's not just like we're gonna dictate and tell you what to do. We want your input, and we're gonna figure out like how we're gonna all do this together.
Right. And when it's that type of vibe, they also understand that sometimes you will be making the ultimate and the final decision. But the decision that you make is going to be in the best interest of all parties. It's not a selfish dictatorial decision. It's not, I'm making this decision because I'm the parent, I'm the boss. It's not that type of vibe. It's more, this is the decision that makes sense for where we are right now. Maybe it's something we can revisit down the road, maybe not. But this is the decision. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have a conversation about it and you shouldn't have an opinion about it.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like through that, as Oliver kind of concerned me a little bit when he went in from pre-K into kindergarten, not feeling like he could speak up for himself, and being in a bigger, the first time he's in the big lunchroom and standing in line in the hallway, like, pre-K, so like you just have your classroom and that's it, and that's all you know. You don't even know the school at large. And I think through being home this through the second half of last school year and this school year, and giving him an opportunity to have a voice, I feel like he also feels more prepared to go back into a bigger school setting, to feel like he can speak up for himself and want to be heard, because I think also he felt like he couldn't be heard.
Right. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It's like we want our children to be leaders and not followers. And that's something that is groomed and developed. That's not something that just hits them on their 18th birthday, or when when they go away to college. Like my children go to college in Minnesota, right? I'm not, that's where they earn scholarships to. That's where they wanted to go. They took trips and, toured the campus during regular semester time and during Christmas break. They made an informed decision, and, they love it. But what I'm not doing is sitting around worrying about them going to, parties, getting drunk, getting high. That's not one of my concerns. And I think that comes in part from the, relationships, the grooming, the standards, the openness that we have. This wasn't about them growing up and feeling oppressed, so that the moment that they hit the door, they feel like they got to experience everything life has to offer in their first 3 weeks of college. And that's what happens with a lot of, young people, unfortunately. It's not always about, the child that you see out in the street doing things that maybe as a parent you wouldn't condone. It's sometimes the child that's sitting at home, quiet, silent, depressed, like oppressed, right? And we look at the kids that wear clothes that we might not let our children wear, sing rap lyrics that we might not want our children to sing, and say, oh, they're gonna go wild, whatever. Sometimes it's the silent one who sat in your house, went to church with you every week, right? But because they didn't have a place to express themselves, once they hit the campus, oh, it's on. It's on, right? So I don't have to worry about that, because, they have groomed themselves into the young men that they want to be. This was not, you have to do this for me. I gave them choices. As a matter of fact, one of the twins, when he was in the 9th grade, now they had already said they didn't want to go to, Temple, Penn State, whatever. They wanted to go to top tier college. I told them, you can go anywhere your brain takes you. You know what it's hitting for financially here. We can't afford to, put 2 children at the same time through a top tier, right? So if that's what you want, if that's what you're shooting for, that's what you have to earn. And so one of the twins, their grades wasn't, so hot in the middle of 9th grade. Like they were fair, like B's, maybe a C. So it's like, that's not going to get you into, top tier. That's what you said you wanted. That's not going to get you there, right? And I had to say to him, listen, you know what you said you wanted. You know that if you said you wanted it, then that's how I'm supporting you in getting what you said you wanted. If that has changed, if you don't want that, then just tell me. And I won't spend my energy trying to, I'm not going to be the one. I'm not pushing you into this. You're not going to resent me. It's your choice. You decide. If you want to just earn the grades that, you could be accepted into, a state college, then okay. But if you want to get into top tier, you know that you have to show and prove now. It's not about showing and proving when you get on campus. You got to show and prove now so you can get to the campus.
Exactly.
And I had that conversation with him before I dropped him, at his dad's. I told him, listen, we can make arrangements. This is not about me. You said you wanted this. If you don't want this anymore, then we can make other arrangements. And so he said, no, Mom, I understand, even though, I get it, I want this. Okay, then great. So then if you want this, then you know what it's hitting for in this house, right? Okay, great. Right? But he came to that decision. It wasn't me. I'll love you either way. But you have to put in the work in order to get what you want. But again, it wasn't about yelling. It wasn't about, I hate you, you're a disappointment. No. If you want that, you have to work for it. If you don't want that, then we can go with plan B. But you have to give your children a stake in their own future. It can't be parent-led. It should be parent-supported. Because if it's parent-led, when they actually get to the place that they work for, they might turn around and say, I didn't want this. This isn't what I wanted. This is what they wanted. And so now, let me just act buck wild. This isn't for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's so true. That's so true. I love too how you talked about how much you love your dad, but you had to pick and choose what you wanted to take forth as a parent. I think that both of us kind of reflect on that too, like reflecting on the good and the bad of our parents, and taking forth what we felt was good and leaving behind what we felt didn't serve our development.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to why doesn't everybody think that way?
I don't know, but yeah, definitely there were some things that were definitely ingrained in me from, growing up with my dad that I've brought along on this parenting journey. And it could have been, what do you call it? Subconsciously. Like it wasn't like I was sitting, making a list when I was a teenager. In fact, when I was 16 or 17, I was making a list saying, I can't wait to get out of here. He was just, on me all the time. Listen, my best friend will tell you, I had it all planned. When the clock strike 12:01, the day that I turned 18, I was going to sit down, write my father basically a Dear John letter. Like I was over it as a teenager. I was done, right? But as I got older, he began to, release the reins. And I could, I understood that the way he had such a tight grip on me, because he didn't necessarily want me to miss out on my future. And that's the way he thought he had to, go about it. He felt like he had to have me gripped up tight, else he was going to lose me. And as I got older and I demonstrated that, this is what I want, I'm working for this, not for you, but because I want it, he began to release the reins. We actually had an interesting conversation when I was 17, I believe. This is when computers first got hot. Like, people working on computers, not just the computers at the Pentagon. And he was like, computers are the wave of the future. You need to, go into, I'm like, I want to be a teacher. It's like, I want to be a teacher. I don't want to work with computers. And that was like, I think the first time that we had an opportunity for me to say, no, Dad, that's not what I want. I want to be a teacher. And luckily, he didn't look at that as that was some big disrespectful exchange or anything like that. And I've always been satisfied with my decision. I couldn't imagine being anything else but an educator. I mean, I just love it so much. So I'm glad that I was not swayed with the computers are the wave of the future, speech. But again, that, goes back to what I'm saying about allowing children to have voice. But there are some things that I did carry over. Like, he was like a no-C household. Like, yeah, you didn't bring C's, into Mr. Grier's house. And I kind of raised them the same way, not that I was over them like that, but, they didn't want to have C's either. And I think I probably put that into them because of, what I got from my dad. So it's, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Had to leave some, things to the side so I wasn't carrying on generational issues, trauma that, he suffered from. I didn't want to, visit that on my children. So, yeah.
And little did he know you'd be an educator who is teaching on a computer. Little did he know. Little did he, like, what are the odds? That's crazy.
Oh, man. Little
He
did he know.
He got both. He won too.
Little did he know a lot of things. And you almost made me tear up a little bit because a lot of my difference, my advocacy, my, fire came about, after he had already, passed on. And so I always get a little sad every time, I earn some sort of accomplishment or, I do some good in the world. I get a little sad because he's not here and he's the reason. He is my everything. He is the reason. And I get sad because he's not here to, to see it in real time. Although, everyone says he can see it. He's, he's with you.
Right. Maybe that's the spunk, because I can't imagine you being shy.
I know, right?
I'm like, shy.
I swear to you. I swear to you, I was so shy that I was just having this conversation the other day. I was so shy that the person I went on the prom with, we were sitting in my house and he was like, what's wrong with you? You can't even curse. That's how bad it was. Right. Me. And I mean, you've probably heard me let a few, fly, Julie, but right. That's how nerdy and quiet and shy I was. He was like, "What is wrong? You can't even curse right.
You can't even curse right."
That's how bad it was. But I think I am still shy in, different situations. But when it comes to education and advocacy and parenting, I'm not shy about those things.
Mm-mm. So real quick, tell us about the book.
The book, Khadijah the Rebel. Yes, Khadijah the Rebel is actually it's an interactive workbook. It's not just a storybook. It's an interactive workbook, and it introduces the impact that mass incarceration can have on children and families, but it also introduces children to the aspect of advocacy, because Khadijah has to decide how she's going to support her best friend who is waiting to hear from her mother, who is incarcerated, as to whether she's able to make the visit to come see her. And so that's, that visit is in limbo. And, the book kind of, teaches about how when parents, when you can't see your parents and they're incarcerated, it's not always because your parents don't want to see you. The prison, makes the rules. And that's just another way that mass incarceration has a negative impact on the, the family bond. So the book is about, giving children a safe space to talk about mass incarceration, because so many of our children have family members that are living with incarceration, but there's a stigma associated with it. It's, there's shame associated with it. And I don't think that that should be the case. And it also, teaches children a lesson about advocacy, standing up to support what's right. There's a little bit of both things in the book. I don't want to give the whole storyline away, but that's what it is.
Okay. Who was your illustrator?
He was a gentleman from Africa that I contracted to do the illustrations for this book. I contracted with him, letting him know that it was going to be a series. So I owe the world more Khadijah books.
Yes. I love it. How did you choose him?
How did I choose him? I was searching for an illustrator that was from Africa. That was important to me because, I love my people. So it was important for me to either have, African American or African illustrator because I wanted the art to be authentic Black art. And so he was, one of many advertising, his work. And I loved the sketches, that he did. And I spoke to him about how I wanted the illustrations to be open illustrations because I want the children to be able to color. So that's another part of the book. This is, it's interactive in a way that a person who can't read can have the story read to them, but they can also color the illustration. So that's giving them a way to engage with the book, even if they can't read it themselves.
Awesome.
I love that. So where can people get the book again?
Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com.
And how do people get involved with the Respect Alliance?
There's a contact area on the website if they want to send me an email if they, have any questions, if there's any way that I could assist or support, or if they want to support others through the nonprofit.
Awesome. I'm going to ask the final question.
So, Connie.
Okay.
No, so if you can give one piece of advice to anyone who's watching this video now or will watch it later on as to how you kill the day, what would it be?
Live your life doing what you love. If you are in a position that you want to kill the day, the way that you kill the day is spending your day in ways that make you happy, ways that bring you joy. I've never had a job that was a job just, for money. My heart was involved. And so I think that that's how I kill the day. I stay joyful through struggles. I stay joyful, through health issues. I stay joyful because I'm always doing what I love. Even if it looks different day to day, I'm always doing what I love.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yes, I'm so glad. I know I learned a lot because you need to write a book one day about you. I didn't know everything there was to know about Connie. So thank you so much to chat with us and with the rescheduling. Thank you so much. This was so inspirational. And as always, catch us every Monday at 9 p.m. for Monday Motivation Chat. And remember, kill the day every day.
Yes, every day.